WNCN's engineer, David Antoine, has just given me the sign to begin, and I am so pleased to have with me as my guest today a woman of such great substance in so many ways. Her name is Ming Tcherepnin. Now, that name, of course, is famous in the history of music because her husband, who died in 1977, is one of the very important masters of music this century. Ming, how are you?
Fine. Thank you.
It is always great to see you because you are a woman of such enthusiasm. I know that you just played in China recently.
Yes, that was about 1 year ago.
You had a great time there?
Yes, I was there for 2 months.
Well, you were born in Shanghai.
That's it.
And I will bet you met Mr. Tcherepnin in China.
That's it, in Shanghai too.
Tell us a little bit about how you met him and his own background. I know he was born of a very, very musical family. His father, Nicholas Tcherepnin, was a famous composer, and he was born in St. Petersburg, 1899.
That's it. Well, in 1934, he had a world tour to go to Orient, and he came to Shanghai and played his Piano Concerto No. 2 with the Municipal Symphony Orchestra. And at that time, I just graduated from Shanghai Conservatory of Music, and I went to hear him to play. At that time, I was with my teacher. Zakharov was a white Russian. So it happened that he knew Tcherepnin. So after he played beautifully, so we want to go into the green room, and my teacher introduced Alexander Tcherepnin to me. That was the first time we met.
Well, by 3 years later, you were married to him.
That's true. Well, he saw me, and I thought that maybe it was love at first sight.
Well, I can
and
understand.
I didn't know it.
But he did. He was a little older.
Yeah.
He knew.
Yeah. And he wanted to stay on, but also at the same time, he loved Chinese music. He loved the Chinese civilization.
Yes,
so
he did.
Would like to stay. So he thought that he wanted to stay in China for some time to learn the Chinese music and all the literature and art and to know the musicians. At the same time, he thought that maybe he can see me more often. But at the same time, I won a award, and I was able to come to Europe because this award gave me the scholarship to come to Europe for the postgraduate. So he has to stay there, and I have to leave to Europe.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, but finally, you met each other again because you lived a very happy life for many years until he died. Alexander Tcherepnin wrote Chinese-inspired music.
That's it.
And you played some of it.
Yes. You see, during 3 years he was there. He came sometime to Europe, so we see each other, and then we married. And then I played quite a lot of his work, which was inspired by the Chinese pentatonic scale.
Yes.
So there are quite a lot of music that he has written on the Chinese scale.
Well, he is an extraordinary musical personality in all ways. We have to say that he was a virtuoso pianist of a high caliber, and he must have always been an inspiring person for you to be with, because you as a pianist, he loved the piano. But Tcherepnin was a tremendous force in so many ways. He knew everybody. He helped many people. He was a teacher that to this day many pupils are very grateful to him. We know very well the American composer Philip Ramey,
That's it.
who loves him so dearly.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a man always questing for the new, and yet He never in any way rejected the old. And this is how we're going to start. I'm going to ask you, because you yourself, Ming, programmed this concert today, and it's all chamber music. Of course, Alexander Tcherepnin wrote operas, ballets, symphonies, piano sonatas. Why did you pick this program?
Well, because you were so nice. Always have, every month you have many music of Tcherepnin, and you have played his symphony and big orchestra work, and etc. But today I thought I will be very modest, just to play something very, very short, very simple, and so that to have a change.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to do that, and we're going to start with a work that stems from 1939, and it's the Flute Quartet. And tell me just a second about this. It's only 4 minutes and 45 seconds long.
That's it. At that time in 1939, suddenly he received a letter from a publisher in America asking him, why don't you write something for the college-level students, suppose for the instrument that nobody thought of them, suppose like, tuba or timpani, etc. And my husband thought that it's a wonderful idea. He is always was very sympathetic for the small people, for the simple people, for the poor. So he thought, well, I will write something for the underprivileged instrument.
Oh, that's great.
Like the tuba and saxophone, and at that time the flute was not regarded as so popular like today. So he wrote actually one trio for flute and one quartet for flute. At that time, I don't think many people wrote for that.
That's wonderful.
So that's why I'd like you to hear it.
Well, for 4.5 minutes, we will now hear this Flute Quartet by Alexander Tcherepnin. What a delightful work. The Quartet for Flute,
Yes.
the Flute Quartet, Opus 60 by Alexander Tcherepnin, who is the subject of our program today. His wife, Ming Tcherepnin, is here to talk about him. The performance, a digital release, very well performed by the Kulau Quartet, and it's on Teldec Telefunken recordings. Ming, we have to stop for a minute for a message, and then we will be right back with more of Alexander Tcherepnin's music. This is David Dubal, and I'm so happy to have a good friend with me, the wife of the composer Alexander Tcherepnin, and in her own right, believe me, a fantastic pianist, a teacher, and really in so many ways a person that is an epical musical mind. How do you like that introduction?
It's a great compliment for me.
I was just reading your articles and interviews and so forth in the September 1983 Clavier, telling all about so many of your experiences, Ming.
That's very nice of you to have the patience to read such a long article.
Well, practically the whole issue is about your husband, Alexander Tcherepnin. You know, I'd like to read, Ming, if you don't mind, what Aaron Copland, his friend, said about him.
Wonderful.
Alexander Tcherepnin was a remarkable and fascinating composer. Because his art represents an unusual fusion of differing cultures, his Russian upbringing, his long sojourn in Europe, particularly Paris, his extensive travels in the Orient, his many years in the United States. And because of this last, I came to think of Tcherepnin as a kind of honorary American composer, a valued colleague and friend. His music, expert and individual, was often dashing and affecting. And we already in that flute work heard this dashing, this rhythmical, this precise quality, and yet it's just one aspect of a tremendous musical mind. He was a great romantic. He was also in many ways a harmonic innovator. And I think, Ming, if you will bear with me a second on this, I think because he was so many things that he never got quite the amount of recognition, although he was always famous, that he should have gotten because he confused people. Am I right?
Well, maybe you're right.
Because someone would say, he's an American composer. Another person would say, he's a Russian composer. You know?
Another one would say he was a Chinese composer
And
or
another
Japanese.
Yes, another one would say he's he stemmed from Russian nationalism. Another would say, oh, he's a European neoclassicist.
Oh,
You
yes.
see? So he was eclectic, but that word is one of the finest words for a composer of such craft as well as individuality. Tell me about the Tcherepnin Society, which was formed to perpetuate his memory.
Well, this is a new society under his name called the Tcherepnin Society, and it was formed to not only to promote his work, but also to promote his idea. He wanted to help the other musicians, young composers, scholars, and also musicologists, and all these people. So we want to perpetuate his idea, so we have formed this society.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Society has a tremendous board of directors, a tremendous advisory committee, and indeed the honorary president is Yehudi Menuhin, who has played a wonderful performance of your husband's violin sonata on record.
That's true.
Now, we're going to another chamber work for what your husband called an underprivileged instrument, and he titled it Sonatina Sportive.
That's it.
It's only 6 minutes long. Tell me about this.
Yes. Well, this is also, it was in 1939, written this for the college level students. this work for saxophone, because at that time, especially in France, I think not many people played saxophone. So he composed this piece just for saxophone and piano. And between time, this piece becomes so well known that I think every saxophonist in the world had played this piece. And now it's also not only for the college students, but also for the artists.
So it has gotten itself into the repertory, the concert repertory of the saxophone.
Exactly.
And so it is one of his famous pieces now.
Yes.
Oh, well, of course, his most famous works, the Bagatelles, Opus 5.
That's true.
Yes, everyone plays those. Let us hear. Who was the performance by here?
This is a French saxophonist called Marcel Mule. He was the pioneer of the saxophone. Now, his student is now the professor in Paris Conservatory.
Wonderful. So we will hear that performance, the Sonatina Sportive, Opus 63 for saxophone and piano by the great composer Alexander Tcherepnin. You have just heard a remarkable and charming piece, the Sonatina Sportive, 1939, by Alexander Tcherepnin. Ming Tcherepnin is my guest today, and we're discussing the great career of her husband, and we're also discussing herself. But while we were hearing that, we were saying something very interesting, how composers really sometimes, even when the work is as popular and in the repertory as the flute, as the saxophone piece we just heard, or his celebrated bagatelles, I always would think, throughout the years he would have made a lot of money from those, and you were telling me not a penny right after the original rights.
That's true. If my husband, at that time, he was not just a Russian or American composer, then he would have earned a lot of money now. But at that time, he was a nonsense. That means nonsense passport. That means no country. And he was not protected in any country. So he sold the famous bagatelle just for 250 francs for all the right, including the mechanical right. Now 250 francs is equal to just a few dollars. Actually, 8 francs is $1, so you can figure out very little money. And now we don't receive any copyright.
So no commission of royalties come in for anything, recordings or the publication out of these famous works for the last 45 years?
Well, for the performance in the concert,
yes,
that is for the author that he still receive, but not for the sale and for the copyright and all this, you see.
Ming, it's so difficult for a composer to be a good businessman. He wants very badly to have the music printed and so forth and played.
That's true.
This has happened many times. Rachmaninoff's famous C-sharp minor prelude, The Rustle of Spring by Sinding. I mean, it was absolutely, the Norwegian composer made millions, except he made nothing.
Yeah, that's
I mean, he sold it instantly too, and Rachmaninoff did too. So this happens frequently, and the composer later on wonders how it could have happened, right?
That's true.
Ming, you have had a wide-ranging career. As we said, that you have been teaching. You have had a wonderful career as a teacher. You have just given master classes and performances last year in China, where you were born, in Shanghai.
Yes,
and you have also, with your husband, Sasha, as he was called by friends.
That's it.
You have 2 fantastically gifted sons. Tell me about that part of your life.
Well, my second son's name is Serge. He is also a composer, but he is also an inventor for electronic synthesizer and all these things. And my third son is Ivan. He is also a professor at Harvard University and head of the electronic studio. And recently they played his piece. He performed his own piece in Alice Tully Hall just 29th of January.
Well, you can say that this is one of the great musical families, along with the Kasadzu family, and I hope that it goes on for 15 more generations, like the Bach family.
Well, I don't think of that. If that
Sure.
happened, it's all right. If not, it's all right too.
Now, what are you doing these days with your own playing?
Well, I have only time to coach pianists. Some young pianists, before they give concerts, they come to me to prepare the whole program. And until that it's okay, I give the okay, then they go on to have a recital in New York or whatever place they want to play. Or I prepare the pianists before they enter a competition.
Yes, I understand. Ming, you have also been a devoted champion of Tcherepnin's works, especially since his death in 1977. He would have this year in January been 85, and he was born in 1899 in St. Petersburg. He studied with very important people, Lyadov even, right?
Well, that is a mistake, because he studied actually in Russia, Sokolov, they said. But not for a long time, because then afterwards he followed his father to go to Georgia, in Tiflis, the capital of Georgia.
Tiflis, yes, where Khachaturian was born.
That's it. And his father was invited as a director of the conservatory in Tiflis. That's where they stayed 3 years. And then from there they went to France, to Paris, in 1921.
So Tcherepnin was, and later became, very much involved in Georgian folk music too.
That's true.
And that's another element of his musical mind. So it's a complex man who made a remarkable synthesis of not only his life, but his works of art. Obviously, he was a man of enormous magnetism because everyone loved him. What was his essential traits? Not only was Alexander Tcherepnin a fantastic looking man, he dominated a room, wouldn't you say?
He has that kind of magnetism.
Yeah.
And that he did not even recognize himself that he had. The secret of his success, that people love him, is that because he loved people.
Ah, yes, he did.
That's it.
Yes, he did. Now, he was a remarkable pianist, as we said. Who did he admire as a pianist?
Well, he admired many, naturally. Well, I think he liked very much Rachmaninoff at his time, Horowitz and Rubinstein.
What composers did he consider important 20th century masters?
Oh, well, it's a difficult question to say, because there are so many, and he liked all kinds of composers, not just the composer that composed like him. Suppose like Elliott Carter, he loved Elliott Carter, and they are very good friends. Each one can do whatever they like. Don't you think so?
Oh, yes, of course. If not, I mean, we would all be in deep trouble. But so many people want everyone to do only what they want to do.
Yeah.
We're going to go on with what you have scheduled for this program, Ming. And the next work is going to be a suite for cello solo. And this is a 1946 work, I believe. Tell me a little about it.
This is a work that he has composed after he came back from China. And also he wanted to write using the Chinese scale and also Japanese scale. They call it the Chinese pentatonic scale.
Sure.
And this is a piece not too long, but there are quite difficult phrases and part you have to learn. Once the French famous cellist Paul Tortelier, whom he played maybe hundreds of times and even make record of it, he told my husband and me, he said, there are in this world 3 composers who has composed cello suite most beautifully. That is naturally Bach, that you know, but there is Kodaly, you know, but there is also Tcherepnin.
Tcherepnin.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I pronounce it in one way, and because of the Russian, there's so many pronunciations.
That's it.
So, of course, it's spelled in English Tcherepnin.
Yes.
Tell us now, who's the performance in this recording?
This is a Japanese cellist. He is now the professor in Toho Conservatory of Music in Tokyo. He's considered one of the most brilliant Japanese cellists.
And what's his name, Ming?
Ken Yasuda.
Let's now hear him in the Suite for Cello Solo by Alexander Tcherepnin. Bat, the important suite for cello solo by the Japanese cellist. Tell me again, Ming.
Ken Yasuda.
Ken Yasuda, absolutely. Right after this message, more music by your husband, Alexander Tcherepnin. Ming Tcherepnin is my guest today, a pianist, a great propagandizer in the best sense for her husband's music. Alexander Tcherepnin died in 1977. He was born in 1899. Very few composers, really very few people, Ming, had a life as full. He was constantly doing for others, and yet never in even one way did he neglect his own career. He knew how to handle things properly. Wouldn't you say so?
That's true.
Yeah.
He seems that he was not doing anything for himself, but yet he knew that what will come by itself naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. We have very little time, actually, for all of the music we want. So I don't want to talk any more and babble on, which I tend to do, Ming. So I want to get right to the 1925, I believe, trio for violin, cello, and piano. Tell me briefly about it.
Yeah. Well, this trio, I suppose this is the shortest piano trio in the musical literature.
Mm-hmm.
And this work, he has the idea of for simplicity, for clarity and concision. This was the culmination of his search for that.
Mm-hmm.
And melody is in part writing, free from any weight of harmony. And the piano part is not in competition with the strings, but it is written in the same linear way, with a duration about 7 to 8 minutes, depends of the players.
Sure. Well, these players, who are they?
These are the American wonderful artists. They make this record called the Pro Musica Records.
Let's hear Tcherepnin's trio for violin, cello, and piano, composed in 1925. composed in 1925, one of the shortest piano trios in existence, even with its slow movement, only 7 minutes. 3 movements in all, and it was a performance by the Pro Musica Trio, the work, the Opus 34 of Alexander Tcherepnin. And after this message, we will be back with more music. Mrs. Tcherepnin is with me today as my guest. We are speaking of the great career of her husband, Alexander, and we're going to conclude very quickly with the first movement only because of time. We can't get it all in, Ming. The 2 minutes and 23 seconds of the first movement of a brass quintet composed in 1977.
72.
72. All right. I know you like this piece, and this indeed gives a cross-section of some chamber music by your husband. The performance is by?
By the, is that Indianapolis?
Yes, that's right.
Brass Quintet.
The first movement of the brass quintet by Tcherepnin. From 1972, we just heard the brass quintet. The Annapolis brass quintet was the performance, and it's on a recording label called Crystal, S207. I know many people are interested in Tcherepnin's music, and by the way, the society, which was formed recently, members can join, and I would say you can do that, Ming, by writing 270 Madison Avenue, 7th floor, New York, New York, 10016. What do you want to say?
The Tcherepnin Society.
Yes, if you want to, the letter should read the Tcherepnin Society. And Ming, we have only given a taste, I mean a very small taste, of a tremendous output in many veins. But I think that we've had a good time doing it.
Yes, that's true. And thank you so very much to give this opportunity.
Thanks for coming here, and I will see you again soon, and the best of luck. This is David Dubal. Thank you for listening.